Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:07. It's O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in this Monday morning. Just as a quick reminder, as you're waking up or just getting caught up on national and international affairs, the nation of Israel conducted some laser precision strikes in Yemen against terrorists. Joe Biden, the president of the United States, asked about the strikes in Yemen, said, I've spoken to both sides. They got to settle the strike. I'm supporting the collective bargaining effort. I think they'll settle the strike.
We're fine. Everything's fine,
I
people.
think he believes that the longshoremen are striking in Yemen right now. I wish I were funny enough to actually write that.
I know.
But that's actually what happened.
I think he'll settle the strike.
There he is. He's only saved by Air Force One's jet engines drowning him out. Coming up later in the show, 7:05 Joe DeGenova, 7:35 Trevor Maddich, and then 8:05 Jerry Torres running for Congress in Virginia. That's Julie Gunlock. I'm Larry O'Connor. We deserve better leaders than this.
Yes.
And I don't know, it's just a hunch, but I think that we'd have a lot of discussion about the competency of our president if Donald Trump had said something like that.
Yeah.
Which, of course, he hasn't.
Right.
But yeah, Joe Biden is on top of things. He supports the collective bargaining process there as it relates to Israel's strikes against terrorists in Yemen. All right, tomorrow will be a vice presidential debate. Usually vice presidential debates really don't make much of a difference, right?
Right.
I mean, honestly.
Yeah. The goal is don't hurt your boss.
Right. Don't make headlines, needless headlines. Although I will say this, I think that there is something to be said for the fact that when you see a running mate on display for the American people to evaluate, it is instructive, I think, in terms of the judgment of the candidate, of the presidential candidate.
Yes.
It's like, okay, I'm going to evaluate Tim Walz and J.D. Vance through the lens of what does this tell me about Kamala Harris and Donald Trump? That in their judgment, because let's face it, I mean, set Donald Trump aside for a minute because he's been president of the United States. We know what kind of judgment he has. We know what kind of decisions he makes. But for Kamala Harris, this is her first major decision as a would-be commander-in-chief, as a would-be president of the United States. And she can't blame Congress for it. She can't blame the Senate. She can't throw someone in her staff under the bus or something. It's all on her.
In fact, the reports are that many people didn't want her to pick Tim Walz. I'm sorry.
Really? But she used her judgment. Right. No, don't be sorry at all. That's exactly. So when you watch the vice presidential debate tomorrow, you should be thinking in those terms. Okay, what does this tell me about Kamala Harris and her ability to make a decision and evaluate personnel? Because she's only got one slot to fill right now, vice president. But if she becomes president, she's got an entire cabinet to fill. She's got hundreds and hundreds of political appointments to make. This was the first one and the most important one because, God forbid, if something were to happen to President Kamala Harris, this is the guy who will then...
A radical leftist.
And kind of a weirdo.
Well, a total weirdo.
Beyond his incredibly dangerous, un-American political beliefs.
I mean, look, I could take the weirdo if he weren't so dangerous. And the fact that, I mean, this guy, how many trips to China? How much love does he have for Beijing? And he is a socialist. He is an avowed leftist. He wants to take parents' rights away. I mean, I can go on and on with his record. He's frightening. And this was who she chose. She didn't try to, and she's an insane leftist. Yeah. So it's not as though she tried to moderate.
Oh, no. Politically, it tells you exactly the direction that this White House will take. Tim Walz, let's not forget, on his very first appearance as the running mate, said this about a prospective debate with J.D. Vance.
Like all regular people I grew up with in the heartland, J.D. studied at Yale, had his career funded by Silicon Valley billionaires, and then wrote a bestseller trashing that community. Come on! That's not what middle America is.
What?
And I got to tell you, I can't wait to debate the guy.
Now, that's what he said at the time. If you believe the reports that are being leaked out from the Harris Walz camp, he's he can actually wait to debate J.D. Vance.
Yeah.
According to inside reports, he is worried. He is in a weird headspace, as they're saying.
Can we also just take a minute just to break down what he said there?
I mean,
like,
I guess we can.
Midwesterners don't go to Yale.
Right.
And like they should
and earn money and write books.
Write books and earn money. Oh, we should be ashamed of being a self-made man, which JD is.
Yeah.
And also, don't forget he bragged about, he blamed his sort of stolen valor moments on bad grammar. He brags about this like it's something to be proud of.
CNN is reporting that Tim Walz is worried that he's going to let Harris down, according to campaign staffers. And by the way, the only reason that a campaign staffer would leak this anonymously to CNN is they're trying to lower expectations.
Yes.
Walz's team is trying to manage his headspace with Buttigieg playing Vance in mock debates.
I thought you were going to say with booze.
Oh, sorry. Pete Buttigieg. Tim Walz is telling people he's just as nervous about facing J.D. Vance as he was the Sunday afternoon in August when he warned Kamala Harris in his running mate interview that he was a bad debater.
Oh.
So apparently he told Kamala Harris that he was a bad debater and he was nervous about the prospect of debating J.D. Vance. And, of course, again, I remind you, the day that he was announced, his first public speech.
I can't wait to debate the guy.
So, someone's lying, right? What changed? Apparently the last thing he told Kamala Harris before she picked him is that he's a bad debater. Also, just the image of Pete Buttigieg playing J.D. Vance. Because J.D. Vance, let's face it, is kind of an alpha, right?
Oh,
he's everything okay over there?
Yes. Larry.
He seemed to respond with gusto there. He's a Marine.
I like those Ohio guys.
Sure, Ohio dude. And sort of he sort of carries himself with a presence, right?
Yeah.
Pete Buttigieg? Not quite the same type, but maybe. So Pete Buttigieg is also from the Midwest, and I guess he can speak sort of.
Pete Buttigieg is, he's kind of got this smug delivery.
Yes.
It's not
so smug.
Yeah, so smug, so know-it-all-ish, right? That's not JD.
That isn't.
It really isn't.
If anything, I'm wondering that if J.D. Vance really beats up Tim Walz too hard, that it'll come across, that he'll make Tim Walz a sympathetic character,
Could make
right?
Tim Walz cry.
It's right, exactly. It's like, leave
don't
him
want
alone.
that.
He's dead already. Leave him alone. All right. As Tim Walz does his debate prep, he went to the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor for a Minnesota versus Michigan football game. He, of course, being the governor of Minnesota. We'll tell you what happened there in Ann Arbor and how football fans greeted him, and a little bit more about the debate tomorrow night on CBS.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live.
From the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Folks, I haven't been this excited since I got a 10% rebate on a leaf blower from Menards. What can I say? I got that BDE, Big Dan Energy. You see what I did there? You get it?
I got it. I didn't want it, but I got it.
Trump and Vance are weird, all right? And they want the government to control what you do in your bedroom and what books you read. In Minnesota, we have a saying, mind your damn business. We also have another saying in Minnesota, my nuts froze to the park bench.
Jim Gaffigan on Saturday Night Live, debut season premiere of Saturday Night Live. They pulled out all the stops. Gaffigan returns as Walz. Dana Carvey came in as Biden brilliantly and perfectly, of course. And it was a look, they're making fun of Tim Walz. See, yeah, sure. Maya Rudolph as Kamala Harris gets to be the smart one in the room, the one who's like enduring Tim Walz's wackiness. She's sort of the suffering through the zaniness around her.
Always patient.
Yes, exactly. Obviously, Maya Rudolph portraying Kamala Harris perfectly and beautifully. Because, they've picked sides on Saturday Night Live. We shouldn't expect much more from them. But, yes, Tim Walz's weirdness has now transcended just conservative commentary. Everybody sees it. Everybody knows it. Gesticulating Jim Gaffigan, using both hands and his weird mouth and just all of the oddness. But, again, the comedy is in how he behaved, but the jokes are lame and actually support the overall narrative of the Walz-Harris ticket. But there you go. Well, if Jim Gaffigan has a job, if Harris Walz wins, so there's that, I suppose. Apparently, Steve Martin was asked to be Tim Walz.
Really?
And I can see that, actually.
Yes.
And Steve Martin declined.
Huh.
He said, thanks, but no thanks.
He's busy with his Netflix show.
Hulu, thank you very much.
Hulu?
With Martin Short.
Yes.
It's brilliant. You should watch it. Meanwhile, as I mentioned, Tim Walz goes to Ann Arbor, Michigan to root on his Minnesota Golden Gophers as they played for the Little Brown Jug, the oldest trophy in college football, against their rival, sort of, Michigan Wolverines, because they're not really a rival. Minnesota is awful, and Michigan is, well, the reigning national champions. Anyway, the point is, Minnesota's already in the bag for the Democrats. So what happened was he goes to Michigan, again, as the governor of Minnesota, to root for the road team. But while he's there, he's rooting for Michigan. There's scenes of him with the crowd, out in the tailgate going, "Let's go blue, let's go blue." But he's from Minnesota. I don't know. I mean, blue is certainly not one of.
Minnesota's playing against Michigan,
right?
And he's rooting, and he's the governor.
I saw a video of him chanting "Let's go blue" for the Michigan Wolverines. He's out in the field. I guess I didn't see him greet the Michigan coach. He was hanging out with the Minnesota coach, of course, and hugging the Golden Gopher mascot and all that. But the crowd booed him. Now, they may have booed him because they hate his politics. More likely they booed him because he's from Minnesota, and it was Minnesota versus Michigan, right? It doesn't matter, though. They booed him. And there's video of him as he's leaving and going out the tunnel before the game. I believe it was a Michigan fan, shouts at him, "Trump 2024. Trump 2024. And I kid you not, Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, flips him the bird.
Wow.
He said, "You're number one," but using his middle finger.
Wow.
So he's there in Michigan trying to get votes, and he flips a fan the finger for saying Trump 2024.
Can we have more comments about mean tweets? Mean tweets.
Yes, exactly. They also, by the way, chanted Tampon Tim at him. Yes, the crowd. In the middle of the rain, by the way. Of course, it was a sold-out stadium, the largest stadium in North America there for a football game, because it's the big house.
Yeah.
It's the Michigan Wolverines. 6:21. A little bit more preview here of tomorrow night's vice presidential debate, which, by the way, you will hear live right here on WMAL right after the Mark Levin program completes its broadcasting at 9 p.m. Then we'll go straight to the live coverage of the vice presidential debate between J.D. Vance and Tim Walz. Again, I personally still can't get over the idea of Pete Buttigieg playing J.D. Vance in the mock debates. That said, CBS News will serve as the broadcast home for this debate, the moderator, as it were. CBS News also put out this tweet Saturday night. Donald Trump had a rally in Wisconsin, and he responded to Kamala Harris's photo op at the border where she pretended to care about border security and illegal immigration. This, of course, on the same day where an ICE report revealed that hundreds of thousands of convicted known criminals, including rapists and murderers and kidnappers and thieves, were deliberately released into this country under Kamala Harris's watch during the Biden administration. They knew they were criminals, and they did not send them back home. They granted them asylum, and now they are unaccounted for and wandering the streets of the United States of America. So, as you can imagine, Donald Trump made a point of that at his rally in Wisconsin. Here's how CBS News, the moderator of tomorrow night's vice presidential debate, characterized that. I'm going to quote them now. Former President Donald Trump meandered Saturday through a list of grievances against Vice President Kamala Harris and other issues during an event intended to link his Democratic opponent to illegal border crossings. That's your moderator of tomorrow night's debate.
Yeah. We know exactly how this is going to go.
Why do Republicans continue to concede that that the networks in some way have some sort of lofty moral position that's superior to anyone else to moderate these debates?
We need to take our toys and go away.
Yes.
Honestly.
There are debates. We shouldn't have to.
That's right. And Kamala Harris is allowed to refuse the Fox debate.
Right. That's right.
Right?
Why can't we refuse theirs?
Yeah.
629.
Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
6:37, we're just plowing through this Monday morning at a lightning speed. Coming up at 7:05, just in 30 minutes, Joe DeGenova will be our guest. 7:35, Trevor Maddich on your first place Commanders. And then at 8:05, Jerry Torres running for Congress in Northern Virginia in the 8th District. That's where Don Beyer is currently your congressman. He wants to take away your gas stoves, don't forget.
That's right.
Yeah, amongst other things. That's Julie Gunlock. He's your congressman.
He is.
Well,
Moving on.
You know what? I'm just going to defer to you and let you ask Mr. Torres all the
I'm
questions.
happy to.
Because you are a disgruntled constituent.
Yes.
So you are primed and ready. I'm Larry O'Connor. That's Julie Gunlock. And we need to focus on the rhetoric that's coming from Democrat operatives right now as they, high-profile Democrats, by the way, as they go on cable news. Now that we are 5 weeks away from Election Day, you know, Donald Trump has had to endure 2 assassination attempts, one of them with a bullet whizzing by his face and grazing his ear, taking out a chunk of it, by the way, with profuse bleeding all around. And then the second one, and we know for sure about the second one that he was inspired by his hatred of Donald Trump and basically parroted in his social media accounts as well as in his little manifesto that the Justice Department released a week after the assassination attempt, that he parroted exactly what you hear from Joe Scarborough,
That's right.
Rachel Maddow, and Hillary Clinton and other commentators on television, that he's a dictator, he doesn't deserve to, he's going to end our country, end our democracy, last election we'll ever have. Right?
And we know there's a plot for the Iranians are plotting to kill the president as well.
So that brings us to this weekend because, you know, this is an existential problem. And by the way, the Secret Service, you know, because we knew that this was coming, because the Secret Service was deployed to protect foreign leaders in New York during their UN speeches, including the Iranian leader. Think about this for a minute. The United States Secret Service was deployed to protect the leader of Iran, the same leader who has put out a hit on Donald Trump, our former president and current candidate for president. And the Secret Service resources were spread so thin over the weekend because of that the Trump campaign had to modify their plans for a political appearance in Wisconsin because there weren't enough Secret Service agents to provide adequate protection for him. Just let that sink in for a minute.
Yeah.
But that's where we are right now in this country and in this campaign. So given all of that and given the actual very real threat that Donald Trump continues to face from assassination attempts. Here's Hillary Clinton over the weekend. This is on PBS. Hillary Clinton talking about Donald Trump.
I still think we have some work to do to make sure that voters, men, women, everyone, know what the stakes are. I think they've got to understand that one choice will give us options for our future, and one choice literally could end our democracy. And I don't say that in any way of satisfaction, and I don't even think I'm exaggerating. Just listen to what he has said.
Literally end our democracy if Donald Trump wins. And honestly, she will not be happy, this woman, until someone finishes the job.
Yeah, I know. Yep.
She is so bitter and so angry and so ruined by losing to Donald Trump that, again, just
Larry,
2 weeks after this assassination attempt.
It's not just her.
It's not just her, but that's one from this weekend. Do you want to move on to, Ben Rhodes? You know, poor Ben Rhodes. You know.
I just came outside to try to process all this.
When last we checked in with Ben Rhodes, this was election night 2016. Ben Rhodes was, by the way, had a major in creative writing in college and then somehow ended up the number 2 as Obama's national security advisor.
Creative writing. How appropriate.
Of course. Mm-hmm. And his job was to empower Iran against America and Israel and take the terrorist side in the Middle East as the national security advisor to Barack Obama. You know, the guy who called ISIS the JV League of terrorists. And then the next thing you know, ISIS is beheading Americans and Christians all across the area. And they couldn't do anything about it until Trump became president. With a year, ISIS was demolished. Yeah, that Ben Rhodes. But here he was on election night in 2016, crying.
He was.
He was literally
sitting outside in a dark area, crying.
And then at one point,
it's a lot to process. I mean, I can't even.
I can't even. Well, Ben Rhodes has had 8 years to sort of get his stuff together, and he appeared with Jen Psaki on MSNBC. And his tears are all dried up, but clearly he's been psychologically affected. Here he is talking about Donald Trump, again, just 2 weeks after the latest assassination attempt against this man.
Right now, it's, Trump is America's dictator, right? I mean, that's what the project is. That's the only thing it's been about. It's not like Donald Trump cares that much about, the health of the Republican Party, the local and state level. I mean, he's, backed candidates that were bad for the health of the Republican Party at the local and state level.
He doesn't care about the Republican Party in any way whatsoever. He is America's dictator.
Yeah.
America's dictator. And
this is more assassination prep.
Yeah, it is. It's honestly, it's sort of assassination porn. They get off on this. They are
do.
so
They
excited, and it satisfies them.
And they are
in some
conveying
way.
to their audience. They are conveying to fans, to followers. Are you going to let this happen?
That's right.
Are you? It's the whole would you shoot baby Hitler?
Right.
Are you going to let this happen? Are you going to let this happen? Ugh.
It's 6:43.
The latest headlines.
And your place to talk about it.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
6:47 now on O'Connor & Company. It's Larry and Julie, your little driving around D.C. friends. You saw Kamala Harris did do that photo op at the border. With all the attention this thing got of her going down to the border in Arizona, do you know how long she was actually there at the border wall?
How long?
20 minutes.
Good God.
It was 20 minutes. And she got this beautiful photo op looking up at the wall that Donald Trump built that she called xenophobic, racist, and unnecessary, and that her administration with Joe Biden pulled the plug on day one of their administration. The money was there. The supplies were there to finish completing the wall, and they shut it down. They shut down the entire construction and then sold off the supplies at pennies on the dollar. And now she's down there just 5 weeks before Election Day in a cynical attempt to pretend like she cares about border security and about the wall and that she was in support of the wall. Everyone sees through the incredible lie that she's perpetrating here. She also, by the way, gave lip service to the Border Patrol. Now, ICE, this would be Immigration Customs Enforcement. She compared ICE to the Klan.
That's right.
When she was a senator and running for president in 2019. She also spread that false story that ICE agents, Border Patrol agents on horseback were whipping
and never
Haitian illegal immigrants. There was never any. There was a picture that an AP photographer took of mounted Border Patrol agents doing their job, rounding up people who were trying to enter this country illegally that had been unvetted. For all we know, they're criminals and terrorists. And in the picture, there were straps from the horses' reins, long reins, that Kamala Harris and her ignorant friends from San Francisco and Manhattan mistook for whips. They're whipping Haitians.
No,
She said that. Her president, Joe Biden, said there would be an investigation, threw these law enforcement agents under the bus, and it was never true. It was a racist lie.
And then there was an investigation, and there was no...
They were exonerated.
Yes, and then there was no mention of it again.
And now she's down there
apology,
pretending like she likes the Border Patrol agents.
Yeah.
By the way, on the exact same day that she was down there, the Border Patrol's having none of it. They are done with this. Border Patrol, the former head of the Border Patrol, spoke out and said, my entire time I was there, I never heard from this woman once. I never heard from the president once. The entire time we were being overrun and unable to do our job. They closed immigration detention centers. They decriminalized illegal border crossings. They gave free health care, including procedures for transgender operations and surgeries. To illegal immigrants that you pay for, and they ended all deportations, and now she's trying to rebrand herself as tough on the border. But beyond all of that, Julie Gunlock, the day that she had this photo up on the border, a report was released, and I want you to listen to this. These are all what they call non-detained, non-citizen convicted criminals. What does that mean? It means people who have entered this country illegally. And now these are the ones that that encountered Border Patrol agents, that encountered law enforcement.
Does not include the gotaways.
Did not include the people who just came into this country, and we have no idea who they are. We don't know how many there are, but we do know that some of them are on the terrorist watch list. We know that there are terrorists in this country that have been allowed to stay in the country. But listen to this: there were 425,000 illegal entries in this country of convicted criminals who
In
have
their
been
home countries.
and they were convicted in their home country. They came into this country illegally, and we let them stay. And they're still here. 425,000 of them, 15,800 had been convicted in their home countries of sexual assault, and 13,000 were convicted of murder. And then they came to America, and under Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, they were encountered, they figured out who they were, and they said, oh, you're welcome to stay. Go ahead. In fact, we'll give you money. We'll give you food. We'll give you shelter. We'll give you whatever you need. Stay here. 425,000 of them, 32,000 of them are either rapists or murderers.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to say that these people didn't just, serve their time, get out of prison in their home countries, and then come across the border.
In some cases, they emptied the prisons.
They emptied the prisons and said,
100%.
go to the United States. You're too much of a burden in our country.
That's right.
Venezuela's like, I've got a great idea of how we get rid of all these horrible, violent gang members. We'll send them to America. So, again, this isn't the case of them, serving out their prison terms and getting out and then deciding for a shiny new life in America. No, it was on purpose.
They think, the Kamala Harris campaign thinks that these lies are going to fool American voters.
They do. They really do. Because they think Americans are stupid.
In my opinion, this was one of the stupidest things she could have ever done, because that photo op, first of all, will be used against her by Trump and their media team 100%. But she's raised the topic of the border. You want to talk about the border? Oh, we're going to talk about the border. It's 6:52.